Hello, welcome to the second episode of I Hope You Suffer. My name is Nathan.
I'm Kit.
And today we are going to talk about the 2006 movie Abominable, which in the first episode I kept calling Abomination for some reason.
Close.
Yeah, as I was editing, I was just like, God, I sound real fucking dumb. There was one thing that I wanted to ask that I forgot about in the first episode because I was thinking about this movie that I remember seeing in maybe sixth grade. Do you remember the first movie you saw that you were truly just kind of terrified from?
Shit, that's difficult. I want to say, off the top of my head, Gremlins.
Yeah, I could see that, especially as a kid. I remember, I have a vivid memory of being at my friend Jason's house in sixth grade, and the movie The Vanishing coming on, which is essentially just about a guy's wife is kidnapped, and he spends years trying to figure out what happened to her, and eventually the guy that kidnapped her is like I could show you what happened to her, but you have to go through what happened to her. This is a very pieced together idea of the plot. I've refused to watch it since sixth grade, but essentially he gets buried alive.
Oh.
And at that age, I never really thought about the idea of being buried alive, and I remember watching that, and just to this day, the idea of being buried alive is maybe the most terrifying thing ever.
I think I'd still put Gremlins above it. Gremlins seem rough.
Yeah, I guess since you didn't eat salad for 20 years, that's...
I'm still wary of leafy vegetables.
That's a good point, especially since they all have E. coli and shit now. Alright, so let's go ahead and just dig into Abominable.
I'm so ready.
Starring Matt McCoy, who will hereby be referred to as Lloyd Braun.
I didn't know he had a name.
Yeah, I had to look it up. And the great Jeffrey Combs, and then Lance Henriksen, I did not know was going to be in this, which was a surprise until I realized what he was doing in this movie.
I remembered Lance Henriksen was in it, but I had no idea Jeffrey Combs was in it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like him at all, which was kind of interesting.
Unrecognizable.
That whole scene with him and then Lance Henriksen, and I don't know who the other guy was, the guy at the very beginning of the movie, is rad because it's Jeffrey Combs and Lance Henriksen, but then it's real terrible because of the dialogue they're delivering. Lance Henriksen having to deliver a story about a guy suffocating in cow shit or whatever.
Rhino.
Was it Rhino?
I was he crazy glued his hands to the ass of a rhino, and the rhino was constipated, I guess, and then they gave it a shitload of X-Lax, appropriately enough.
The entire time I was just this is embarrassing. But it was also...
diving straight into one of the weirder portions of the movie. The campfire rhino constipation story.
I was just you're going to have these two actors having this bit of dialogue together, and this is what they're talking about. The Darwin Awards or whatever, and... Alright, trying to think. I tried to find some kind of cool info about this movie, just some fun facts or whatever, and pretty much the only good fact I found that I thought was kind of weird was that Ryan Schifrin, the director, also worked on the scores for Rush Hour 2 and 3.
That's strange.
Yeah. I thought that was a very kind of left field trivia piece. That and this would really make no sense to anybody but Jeffrey Combs' family, but I guess his character was based on his uncle. He just plotted that whole character around I guess how his uncle acts.
He had a very weird uncle then.
Yeah, I agree.
For anyone listening that hasn't seen the movie, in it, Jeffrey Combs is essentially a trailer park boy. was the vibe he was giving off.
Yeah, he's just
got the big goggle glasses and a plaid shirt and a really shitty shaggy wig.
Yeah, and an oxygen tank. That.
How did I forget his breathing tubes?
At one point, I was just like, "Oh, cool! We could just like unplug this oxygen tank and just walk around this gas station he works at for like 20 minutes, I guess, just to go point at shit."
I was hoping it would come into play, like he would use it to try and ward off the Yeti, or the Yeti would blow him up with it.
Yeah, we'll get to how disappointing I thought it was that the way his character just dies. Spoiler alert: Jeffrey Combs dies in this.
Pour one out.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that was about the only kind. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of info about this movie.
I can't believe it, or I can't imagine anyone was keeping great notes for Abominable.
Well, usually, like on IMDb, you could find like a lot of just kind of weird shit and
super weird trivia.
Like, it was pretty much like the thing about Jeffrey Combs and his uncle, and then like I was looking at kind of like the I can't think of the word of it, like the goofs and like shit where they fucked up in the movie, and I guess like one of the things is that at one of the scenes where the Bigfoot, like there's a bunch of shots of the Bigfoot opening its mouth, and one of them you can actually see the actor's mouth in it.
Oh shit!
But I'm not sure which one. I did not like watching
I can only think of like 3 off the top of my head. So
yeah, watching it on my TV. Like, the one time it popped up that I was like, oh shit, I should be looking for that was towards the end, but I didn't see it there, so. Alright, well, let's go ahead and dive into this, because this movie is bonkers. The opening scene, I was very bummed out and not stoked about Sparky the dog dying, even though off-screen.
They killed the dog immediately. Like, they wasted no time.
Yeah.
Other horror movies tease it out, and it's like, oh, what's gonna happen to the dog? No, Sparky was done, like, in 2 minutes.
I was at least glad it was off-screen. But
I always expect the Yeti to, like, throw the corpse at the old man. He's standing out there on his porch with the shotgun, like, oh, Sparky! I always expect the dog body to come flying at him.
That was pretty much exactly what I assumed was going to happen, which I'm glad they didn't do, because usually animals getting hurt in a movie, like, turns me off immediately. But
unless those animals are Yetis.
Well, even still. The Bigfoot was just trying to get some dinner, just because it was people. So this movie pretty much opens with a farmer and his wife that, like, the farmer comes back later, but really has no bearing at all in this movie. I'm not really sure what the point was of bringing him back, other than the fact that it was like 3 character actors they could fit into a scene. But this farmer and his wife hear some very loud footsteps, which made no sense to me how loud they were mixed into this movie. And they go outside in pajamas and boots, which I wrote down was an excellent look.
Very stylish.
Yeah. And their dog Sparky runs off and gets attacked off screen by this Bigfoot, and then it pretty much cuts to the opening credits.
I took really, really terrible notes during this, and during that whole sequence there's, a bunch of cuts to the window and you just see a shadowy figure run by. And the only note I have is Shadow of the Yeti a stoner band?
That's a pretty good possibility. At least a song title. I did write that the Bigfoot Yeti tracks were the smallest ones I think I've ever seen, because they look like they were almost smaller than, like, the farmer's feet. And
There's just the farmer walking around barefoot earlier in the snow.
Yeah. Probably. He was like, oh shit, I don't remember being out here.
Tripped himself up.
And so, after the credits, my memory does not work well, so Kit will probably have to go into this movie in more detail than me, because I watched this, like, almost immediately after we got done and realized it was on Amazon Prime. But you're introduced...
So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I'll hit the highlights.
Yeah. You're introduced to Lloyd Braun's character, who I can only assume, like, after losing his computer selling competition with George Costanza, decides to go mountain climbing as a vacation, and that's how he ends up in this wheelchair. Which you get some very, very terrible looking flashbacks very quickly of how him and his wife died in this like mountain climbing accident. Which was like one of the ones I remember was just the two hands reaching as like the wife falls in front of like a really shitty green screen that you only see for maybe like half a second.
They put all the money into the Yeti, which is sad.
I would say a third of the money went to Jeffrey Combs and Lance Hendrickson. A third of the money went to the Yeti costume, and then a third of the money went to one of the deaths.
Cabin.
No, I was gonna say like the head biting scene. Because I was legit like surprised how gruesome that actually was. So Lloyd Braun's introduced with maybe the worst
cool guy caretaker Otis.
Otis, who was I wrote down as the worst, most unlikable character I've ever seen in a movie. Who like 100% was probably making Lloyd Braun listen to like Mushroom Head the entire drive there.
Let's assume that Otis was the one that had crippled Lloyd Braun.
That's a good possibility. Like, the entire time I was like, I know this dude's gonna die in this movie, and I can't fucking wait for it to happen, because this guy sucks.
They take their sweet time with it.
Yeah. Which it's very worth it in the end. So they go to a gas station, which is where you're introduced to Jeffrey Combs, who
desperately wanted to fuck Lloyd Braun's wife, apparently.
Yeah, that was weird. it's also interesting.
Too bad she died. She was such a pretty fine lady.
It's interesting how much like all like him, and then like when you meet the cops later, are just kind of like everybody seems to know who this guy was. Everyone seems to know that his wife was hot. It's very weird.
The only reason they know who he was is because they wanted to bang his wife.
Well, was he a writer? Was there something I missed that he was somebody of note? Or was it just because of this, like, accident he had?
I think it's just the accident in their tiny little town.
So, this movie is a very weird mix of, like, a monster movie and then, like, essentially... Shit, what's that movie? What's the Alfred Hitchcock movie?
Rear Window?
Rear Window. I kept wanting to say Rear View, and I knew that was wrong. Because it's basically, the plot boils down to Lloyd Braun stuck in this wheelchair after he had this rock climbing accident, like, a year prior or something, and is stuck in this house and sees this Bigfoot attacking a house next to it full of like a bunch of
teenagers.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're supposed to be teenagers, but they're a bunch of like women at a bachelorette getaway, I guess.
Yeah. Because
the weirdest line in this entire movie is after they show up in their sweet new metal Jeep with the flames all over it.
that awesome skull on the hood.
Oh my god. I literally just wrote down a new metal Jeep ! As one of my notes.
I think I wrote a sweet-ass Jeep Wrangler.
They show up, and he's kind of like watching them with his binoculars for uncreepy reasons.
As one does.
Yeah. The only reason I could assume they're there as like a bachelorette thing, because I don't think they ever specifically say, but they're having a conversation on their deck after they arrive, and they're talking about the one girl, I'm not sure if it was Amanda, who was like the main girl at the end. I don't even remember if you get all their names other than Amanda's.
I just called the one blonde girl not Tara Reid, and then I don't know anyone else's name.
That's not Tara Reid is pretty accurate. Well, they're sitting there talking, And they're talking about if she's going to wear a white dress, or like if, there's going to be a bunch of white at the wedding. And she's like, yeah, of course. And the one girl says, for real? You weren't with us in elementary school. Why should she be wearing white? Which made me ponder, was this girl fucking people in elementary school? Because that line is
That's
real
a very
weird.
Weird line.
I don't understand why it wasn't like high school at the earliest.
It's going to be a very strange wedding.
Yeah. She's marrying her teacher from elementary school, apparently. So, basically, these girls are there. They're partying. Otis is being a mega creep when he sees them. And
he was so stoked to snatch those binoculars away from Lloyd Braun.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, hey, you're creeping on girls? Let me join.
I mean, there's no way he's not doing that in his regular, off time anyway, so...
Oh, absolutely.
One of the interesting things I found out, though, was that guy, whoever the actor is that plays Otis, apparently cut his hair like that to just make himself even creepier. With his, red hair with the weird bald spot in the back, and then his, real shitty mustache.
He has the shitty mustache sideburn combo that just really ups his creepiness factor.
Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure he had a real thin gold chain on as well with his scrubs. His entire look was just terrible.
He was always wearing scrubs.
Well, he's a nurse, I guess. Apparently, you just have to live in those if you're a nurse.
The whole 3-day weekend.
Yeah, my next note actually ties in where I was just like, yes. Just spying on women in the restroom. Totally normal. And then this is where my next note came in, was just in all caps, what is happening? Which I'm guessing, at this point I don't remember, but I think it was dealing with... I
think around that point is Lloyd Braun sees some yellow eyes in the bushes.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
One of the girls disappears and he sees her phone. So he looks up white pages on his computer to find the phone number for their cabin or one of the girls or whatever, and he sends them a message one of you is missing, a monster took you.
So,
which is the creepiest goddamn thing imaginable.
The technology in this movie is very confusing because the girl that gets kidnapped by the Bigfoot has got a 2002 Nokia brick phone. Lloyd Braun has some kind of I'm guessing state of the art in 2006 Apple laptop that apparently has an app on it, or you can go to the internet white pages, type in someone's last name and text them through the internet.
Literally whoever.
Yeah, I'm hoping that wasn't a real thing because that sounds ridiculous. And then has this weird fancy looking landline phone that the Bigfoot was smart enough to, tear down all of the poles just for that. Not the rest of the electricity, but just the phone lines so that nobody can use them.
People underestimate how smart Yetis are.
Apparently, because this one was very smart and for some reason has the loudest footsteps, but also is very stealth at whenever it needs to be, especially when it actually gets into the house.
It didn't make a single goddamn sound inside of the house.
Yeah.
Didn't hear a single footstep.
He also, when he sees the girl get kidnapped and, is on the internet, going to his trusty website where you can just text whoever by their last name through the internet, sends an email to the police to tell them that, this some kind of monster kidnap people, and I'm very glad he read that out loud, Captain Exposition, because we needed to know everything he was typing in this email about a Bigfoot to the police. And then I think that's when Otis comes over as he's getting, as he sends the email and, slams the computer down, and it's just, a huge dick. And I think, is that I think that's when he was just like, can you go get me, like, soy milk, because our milk is bad? To which Otis, the guy who's getting paid to take care of Lloyd Braun, is just like a huge dick about the milk, and he's just like, I'm allergic to regular milk, and he's just like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not gonna kill you. I'm like,
fucking Otis.
Actually, I think it might.
Yeah. So then I think that's when it cuts to the scene of the farmer with Jeffrey Combs and then Lance Henriksen's characters, who I don't believe ever got named in the movie, or if they may have in these conversations, but
I'm pretty sure Jeffrey Combs is literally just credited as clerk.
Probably, or
on
like
IMDb.
Gas station attendant or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have this conversation about, people that are dumb enough to get the Darwin Awards, and like this dude drowning in rhino shit that we talked about earlier, which I felt bad for Lance Henriksen for having to like deliver these lines. But he did get to
old as time.
He did get to tell Jeffrey Combs, who is using an oxygen tank and smoking, that I bet your lungs look like a pair of old saddlebags, which legitimately made me laugh.
I feel like old saddlebags don't look that much worse than like new saddlebags.
Yeah, just a little.
I don't think it's really that insulting to call them old.
Slightly more worn down. And so they're out there, the three of them, hunting this Bigfoot that the farmer saw that killed his dog. Having this conversation when they hear a noise where Lance Henriksen just decides, fuck it, I'm going to go out and find it on my own, and just like goes on his own, discovers this cave, and goes into this cave where he finds the girl that got kidnapped.
Taken earlier.
Yeah, that Lloyd Braun saw. That, for some reason, luckily for him, that the Bigfoot Yeti creature decided to leave alive, just long enough for like Lance Henriksen to find him, or find her. And
before dragging her away in a fury.
Yeah, one of my notes was, this Yeti loves to drag people. And she has like the worst like gore makeup on her stomach, that apparently that's all he did, was just kind of just like scratched her stomach, and that was it. Until somebody found her, and then was like, alright, now I can eat her.
Now it's time.
It also, like, I don't know why this bothered me, but the sound effects of water dripping in that cave were maybe the worst I've ever heard. It was, like, real loud, and, like, it sounded like somebody when they just, like, flip their cheek and make that, like, water drop sound. It was real bad.
I wish I could do it.
Yeah, I can't either, but that's, like, all I could think of the entire time.
Imagine us doing that for the rest of the show.
You guys got another 30 minutes. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
One of my notes, because Jeffrey Combs, after, like, the Yeti, like, drags this lady away, Lance Henriksen goes running. Does he make it back to the campsite, or do they find him?
Lance... Yeah, because Lance dies, and then Jeffrey Combs makes it back to the campsite, I think, right? And realizes that everyone else is gone.
Well, I think while he's there, the farmer gets, like, dragged away, because that's what I think I wrote, that, like, he loves to drag people. But Jeffrey Combs just, like, I don't know why, but I really loved his scene when he was just kind of there by himself. I don't even remember the lines he's delivering. But he's just, I think it was like the typical, like, okay, guys, I know this is a joke, kind of like typical bullshit.
Stop messing with me.
But, like, the way he was acting in this movie, like, the character he's playing, and, like, that whole part I thought was pretty good. I pretty much just love Jeffrey Combs in general, so I'm pretty much into whatever he wants to do. So
this is where it starts to get real nutty in the movie.
Yeah, this is. I think when
things really escalate.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. I'm trying to figure out what this next note was all about. So it cuts back.
Hit me with it, I can decipher it.
It cuts back to Lloyd Braun, and it's getting dark now, and the girls are realizing their friend is gone. Her phone's still laying on the sidewalk. Because my note was, what the fuck is this texting website? So Lloyd Braun is like texting this girl's phone, hoping like the girls in the house next to him will hear it. So they come outside, they see the phone going off, And they're all, like, freaked out, like, what are we going to do? We should just leave. They're like, we're not leaving without her because, you know, they're going to stick together even though this, you know, the worst decision they could have done. Instead of going to get help. Or no, they call the police and the police are like, you have to wait 48 hours.
File a missing persons report or whatever.
And so, as they're outside, like, freaking out, I think as they're getting ready to go back in, you kind of see the Bigfoot in, like, the brush behind them.
Always. He's always creeping around in the background.
Yeah, to which Lloyd Braun starts fidgeting with the lock on the window that he can reach fine in his wheelchair, but can't get unlocked, because my note was, this is the strongest window lock in history. Because he fidgets with it for like a good 4 minutes. I think...
That's a good lock.
Like, they get back in the house to where it cuts to Sasquatch vision.
This is where it becomes like a slasher movie.
Yeah.
That Lloyd Braun is watching through binoculars.
Yeah, this is...
All the women make it back into their house. And then it goes Sasquatch vision, and then it cuts to Lloyd Braun through his binoculars. And you see the Sasquatch just picking them off one by one throughout the house.
Yeah, like, it's... my note, like, because, like, they're all... The girls are all complaining, like, they're arguing about what they should do, and one of the girls wants to leave, and the other two were just like, we're not leaving, just calm down, and I was just like, these ladies seem like the absolute worst friends. And then, I don't remember what this was from, but I just have the quote, what a cockknocker. Which, I'm guessing that had to be something with Otis, because I know... Is this when, like, Otis goes to drug Lloyd Braun and Lloyd Braun turns it on him and drugs him?
Probably.
Because my next note was, how is Otis allowed to be a nurse?
He's just walking around with needles full of whatever the hell.
Ready to... No. So, no, he hasn't yet, because we haven't got to the Peeping Tom thing yet. So, as they're arguing, for whatever reason... The actress that goes to take a shower is Tiffany Shepis. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but I know her. She's in a bunch of trauma movies. She was the only other person in this movie I recognized. But she, in the middle of arguing what they're going to do, gets wine thrown on her and decides to just go take a shower. Which
is maybe the best part of the film.
Which Lloyd Braun sees through his binoculars, which these binoculars, I'm guessing, are, like, somehow can see through walls, because they manage to see into every fucking room in these girls' house.
That house has so many windows.
It's crazy. And
every room has 15 windows.
Like, the amount of things he can see into just boggled my mind. So he sees her go get in the shower, which is when you get her nude scene, to which Otis walks up and pulls the binoculars away from him and is, like, very stoked about this. And that's when I think they fight. Otis is going to, like, inject him with something to have him go to sleep, to which Lloyd Braun turns it around on him and, like, injects Otis with this to where he is passed out for pretty much the rest of the movie.
Whatever that shit was incredibly powerful, because Otis is gone for, like, 40 minutes.
Yeah, at least. Which then leads to maybe my favorite death in this movie. This is probably my favorite one, because it was it's not like bloody, but it's just awesome. So Tiffany's character is showering, gets out, and is, like, drying off, and hears a noise at the window, to where the Bigfoot reaches in through the window and pulls her through the window, basically breaking her body in half, and it's pretty fucking dope. Like,
I'll be honest, I'm a huge idiot, and I thought that she was looking in a mirror. Like, I missed that she had heard a sound, and I was like, what? Why is the mirror on the outside portion of the house instead of a window? The Bigfoot's just punching through the mirror? That's so weird to me. And I was like, oh, that's a window, you jackass. Like, she's looking out the window.
I was not at all expecting that death. And, like, when it happened, I was like, that fucking ruled. Because, like, it looks cheesy, but also slightly realistic. Like, it did look, you know how, like, in, like, Nightmare on Elm Street when the mom gets pulled through the window?
Yeah.
And just, like, looks real terrible. Like, this, you can,
there's no blatant, like, cutaway where it's like, oh, okay, well, that's the dummy now.
Yeah,
like, they maybe pulled a real human woman through a window like that.
It was very well done. And
not something you expect to hear out of 2006's Abominable.
I mean,
that was very well done.
I would say that and then Otis's death are both pretty fucking great. So I think at this point is when it cuts to the cops, who are the worst actors on the fucking planet. Even the dude from the Breakfast Club.
I was gonna say, Breakfast Club principal guy is the chief, right? Chief of police?
Yeah, who is drinking out of a mug that says, mess with the bull or something like that. Like, whatever his fucking quote was.
What else would it say?
It's terrible. It's so dumb. And he's, like, the one cop is like, oh, we should go look into this. And then Breakfast Club dude is just kind of like, fuck it, and delivers the line, I'm going to go give birth to a monster, which, again, I felt bad for him for having to go from, like, movies like The Breakfast Club to, like, talking about going to take a shit and having to refer to it as giving birth to a monster. They are very terrible. Anytime the cops showed up, I was just like, this sucks. I don't want to be with these characters at all.
It's like real life.
And so I think sometime after this is when you finally get a full look at the Bigfoot costume.
Yes, I think Lloyd is looking through the binoculars and sees the back of it, and it slowly spins around to fully reveal itself.
Staring.
And you see the dorkiest fucking face. Or it's this massive head with, like, no neck going down into the shoulders, but the face is super small and, like, squished together, and it's got the biggest mouth doing an upside-down frown, like that dude from Nightmare Before Christmas, the mayor,
yeah.
had this face. And I'm pretty sure CG eyes.
Yeah, the eyes, like, glow. They glow different colors at different times for some reason. Like, at some point they're red, at some point they're yellow. It's a very weird choice. And, like, the costume looks well put together, but it's just real goofy.
Fucking design.
Like,
it's incredible.
The teeth are fucking huge in this, like, weird frowny mouth.
They're so, like, thin and weirdly broken.
Yeah, it's... Like, the whole thing where it's missing a neck, I was just like, this is what made, like, if it had a neck to where its head was, like, higher, it would not look nearly as bad.
You don't have to watch this movie after this podcast, but at least Google what the Yeti looks like.
Yes, I'd say it's even worth watching the movie just for that.
Oh, absolutely. For the last, like, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
So, that's when he sees him, the Yeti is going to basically break into these ladies, the house these ladies are staying in, which is where he somehow becomes the most stealthy individual using his ninja skills on the fucking planet, because I don't know how the rest of the time you just hear these, like, massively loud stomps, and then all of a sudden it's just nothing when he gets into this house.
Utter silence.
Yeah. So he's essentially nothing of real importance happens when he breaks in the house, other than he just starts picking off these girls, which I think
I'm gonna say that when all the girls split up and the one goes up to the second story,
yes,
and he reaches through the floor, and you just see a shot of gigantic arms reaching up and pulling her down. And then he starts eating just her neck meat, and then just kind of vanishes. I'm going to say that's important.
Well, yeah, I was because my note was that these deaths are all horrible, except for the one where the girl reaches through the floor, or where the girl gets pulled through the floor. And I think, yeah, she dies there, because that was the one girl. Then, like, basically you're just left with Amanda, who was, like, the main, I think the girl who was getting married.
There was one other girl, right? One of them makes it out to the Jeep, and he starts, like, smashing up the Jeep Wrangler to escape, and he knocks her down, and he literally stomps on her one time, and you just see her guts fly out the side of her stomach.
Is she the one that maces him? Like, maces the Bigfoot?
So.
That was a note that I put where I was just like, macing a Yeti.
You gotta try it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't...
You don't know what their weakness is.
It works for a minute.
And then you get your gut stomped out.
Yeah. And so, after all these girls get killed off except for Amanda, like, Lloyd Braun finally decides to break a window that he's been staring at for like an hour of this movie to get her attention. Gets her to like come and like she like, you know, he gets her attention. She runs into like hit Lloyd Braun's house to where Lloyd Braun then, for some reason, in this panic when they're deciding on what they're going to do to fight this Bigfoot, goes into a 5-minute story about how he got into his wheelchair, which obviously wasn't the best time to go into this.
Yeah, why not go through our personal traumas whenever we're trying to escape from inevitable Yeti death?
Yeah. And he also brings up, like, a point that didn't make sense to me, that I don't remember even being... Didn't even make sense to, like, what was happening in the movie, but he mentions that the Bigfoot is using its sense of smell to hunt.
Yeah, he just, like, picked that up out of nowhere. What was it? It was that him studying, like, bears or some nonsense, and was like, oh, these big predators use their sense of smell, and, you know, the Yeti's probably exactly the same, so...
Yeah. It made no sense, and I was very confused by that. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe that's going to be, like, something that comes into it later. Nope, that's the only time you hear about it. And at this point, Bigfoot, Yeti creature with no neck, decides that it'd probably be a good idea to cut the power to the entire house. Which, you know, classic Yeti move, finally cutting the power.
After knocking down a power line at the very start of the movie.
Yeah, just the power line that controls like the phones, though.
Go figure.
This is like the movie gets bonkers and then just like introduces a bunch of shit that makes no sense, all to like lead to some character deaths. And I don't really understand what, like, they pull out all of this rock climbing gear. Which makes sense in the part where they're like, you know, he's crippled from, like, the waist down, so he can't, like, go down the stairs. So I get that part, but they start pulling out, like, all of this rock climbing shit, like the pickaxe, which, like, never comes into play. Like, they make, like, a point of showing that shot of the pickaxe for, like, a good, like, 15 seconds, so you know it's there, and then, like, it just never seen again.
Nothing ever comes of it.
So their plan is to use, what was it, like, ground beef to lure this Bigfoot to, like, the front door while they go and, like, climb down this rope from their deck down to the ground. And the Yeti basically, like, breaks into their house, I'm guessing for this ground beef that, well, maybe that's what they were getting to with, like, the sense of smell. Maybe as they're, like, distracting him.
Smelled real good.
I guess that makes sense
ground
now.
Beef.
And so, as, like, Lloyd Braun starts, like, climbing down this rope, gets down to the bottom first, and then Amanda starts climbing down, and gets halfway down, and the Yeti grabs the rope and starts pulling her up.
Which looks amazing.
Yeah.
A dude in this big dumb Yeti costume hoisting up this rope, pulling a woman up.
I will say, like, again, like, I think the Yeti costume looks good.
It looks good.
And, like, especially when you see...
Dumbly.
When you see stuff that's, like, not the face. Like, because all you really just see, like, the arms pulling it up, and they actually look pretty good. But when you get, like, real good close-ups of the face, this is, like, the goofiest shit ever. So he's pulling Amanda up, and as he gets her to the top and is getting ready to kill her, Otis apparently has woken up, grabs an axe, and then delivers the classic line that you brought up earlier, which was,
"Hey, ass monkey," before lodging the axe into the Yeti's back.
So fucking stupid. Somebody got paid to write that.
Brilliant.
Like, do you think that was just like a first draft line? They're like, oh, we'll come up with something better later, and they just never did.
I genuinely hope it was ad-libbed.
I mean, yeah, it fits Otis, like, it works for Otis, but it's so dumb.
Just imagine rolling up on set with the axe. "Hey, ass monkey."
And so, the Bigfoot gets an axe to the back.
Totally unfazed by it.
I made a note earlier because later in the movie, like, the Bigfoot gets this axe to the back, doesn't even flinch, doesn't make a noise, but then later loses its fucking mind to the pain of a car horn.
They never hint that, like, maybe loud sounds would freak it out either. He just starts honking and it's like, oh my god, this hurts so bad.
It was essentially just like when you see, like, a movie where someone goes to prison and they're like, well, I'm gonna take down, like, the biggest guy in the yard, and goes and punches him, and then, like, the dude is unfazed and just, like, slowly turns around, look at him. It was basically that. And then the Yeti bites off, like, height-wise, the entire front of Otis's head, and it is fucking amazing.
So the bottom part of the Yeti's jaw goes into Otis's mouth.
Yes.
Like, it hooks under the top part, and he just bites off his whole face.
It rules. And then, like I said, I think a third of the budget went to this because it actually looks really good. Like, the gore in it is
super awesome
very
effect.
good. Yeah.
And you never see anyone get their head lopped off quite like that, where it's just, the front fourth of their head from the top jaw up.
Have you seen Hatchet?
I have.
So you know when, like, I can't think of the fucking villain's name in that movie, but he, like, grabs the old lady's head by her mouth and, like, rips it in half?
Yep.
Like, it was kind of on par with that. Like, usually you'll see, like, maybe where we get, like, cut in half at, like, the eyes, but, like, this one was brutal. Like, especially with, like, the Bigfoot's, like, lower jaw going into his mouth. It's so good. So, Otis is dead, finally.
R.I.P.
And very, very well worth it. Amanda gets dropped straight onto her back and is just kind of like, oh, that hurt. Totally fine, though. Cause I was
Not a big deal. It's like 30-foot drop onto rock.
I was like, that would be awesome if they would have just crippled her, too. And then, like, the rest, like, the end of the movie, it was just Bigfoot slowly making his way down to, like, go after them. But she's apparently totally fine, unfazed by this, like, 30-something foot drop straight onto her back. Is carrying Lloyd Braun to the car him and Otis drove up in. He gets in. She runs the other side to get in. As they go to, like, after she fumbles with the keys, because obviously you gotta fumble with them, because if you're in a panic, you can't find the right key.
Gotta add tension to the Yeti movie.
Bigfoot grabs the back of the car and lifts it up so they can't get away. As they're, like, just flooring it, he drops it, and they just go, like, 10 feet straight into a tree. Which I'm assuming would have happened anyway if they would have just, like, taken off.
Yeah, she's just flooring it regardless. Like,
She not wearing her seatbelt, to which we both wrote the exact same note of always wear your seatbelt, goes straight through the window, like after they run into this tree.
Again, totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, she's got a higher pain threshold than the Yeti does.
Spoiler, she lives somehow after going through this windshield, flying a good 20 feet and landing like on her face. Even though I think when Lloyd Braun finally goes back to her later, she's like on her back. So Lloyd Braun is basically like trapped in this car. The Bigfoot is behind it, and he gets the idea, which is actually kind of genius, and I thought was kind of well done, where he like ducks down and uses his hands, puts the car in reverse, and like just hauls ass backwards into the Yeti, smashing it into a tree, which drives the axe in the Yeti's back through its chest.
This was brilliant, I thought.
Yeah, that was very good. And like, you know, you would think an axe driving through your back, through the front of your chest, probably splitting your heart in half. You know, the Yeti, quote unquote, yeah, well, quote unquote, dies on. Yeah, he's kind of sitting there like whimpering for a minute, but you know, and then passes out where you think it's dead until the cops show up and they go to look at the car and the Yeti's just gone. Because, obviously.
Yeah.
And
can't take him down that easy.
As the cops are there, like Lloyd Braun, talking to Amanda, who's somehow still alive, but all broken up, wearing the worst lipstick I've ever seen. Cops show up, they're all, you know, happily ever after. They're all getting, like, loaded into ambulances to get, like, medical help.
No, wonder what could have happened here.
Yeah. They look at the car.
We need to go try and find the bodies.
They look at the car and the Yeti's gone. And then as the cops are all sitting there talking about whatever dumb bullshit I blocked out of my memory because they were terrible, hear a noise, and all of a sudden they turn around and you see a bunch of Yeti eyes just start opening in the woods.
4,000 CG Yeti eyes. All different colors.
To which I wrote...
That's a lie. They're all yellow.
I wrote into all capital letters, sequel with a bunch of question marks. So I'm guessing they were just setting up that they wanted a sequel. Yeah, I would 100%.
Robbed of the sequel.
I would definitely watch another version, or a sequel to this movie.
Ryan Schifrin moved on to bigger and better things, and the soundtrack to Rush Hour 2 and 3.
Like, I just want it to be kind of like Jaws 4, where it's just like the families of this Yeti.
Absolutely.
Are just like Lloyd
Yeti
Braun.
Revenge tale.
Lloyd Braun killed our aunt, so now it's personal.
That was just the baby Yeti.
Yeah. I also wanted
to 30-foot tall Yetis.
To mention that the tagline to this movie was, "We've hunted it for decades, but now it's decided to hunt us," which is terrible.
Really not that accurate at all either. It's just terrorizing some people in a super small town.
I have to look this up because there was a bunch of taglines, and one of them was one of the dumbest taglines I think I've ever seen to a movie.
I refuse that. No animal would have a dumb tagline.
I was going to write it down, and this one was just really, really terrible. Sure, so I'd make a sequel to this.
Taglines. Some things are better left unfound. Hunted it for decades, but now it's decided to hunt us. We've hunted it for years, but what happens when it decides to hunt us? Oh fuck, this is the one. If the cops want to solve these murders, they'll have to think big. Yeah, really big.
That's what it was. I was like, I knew it had something to do with the cops, but I couldn't remember what it was. That was... the cops played no part in this movie. They're maybe have 4 minutes of screen time.
We're trying to solve any murder at all in this film. They actively did not want to help because they thought it was all a prank for the first hour and 28 minutes of this hour-and-a-half movie.
Fucking Breakfast Club dude was just nah, it's just somebody pranking us. Fuck it. We're not looking into this. I hope the sequel... They need to make a sequel which is just the cops trying to arrest a Bigfoot.
We're taking you downtown.
Oh, this movie was so bad. I love it. I highly recommend anybody listening to this to go watch this movie, especially even if it's just for like the last 30 minutes, because the first portion of the movie is essentially
its pacing is terrible. It's kind of all over the place, but the last 30 minutes are so absurd, it more than makes up for it.
It pretty much is just setting up this terrible idea of turning like Rear Window into a monster movie. And like...
Which is a good concept.
Yeah, it's just like... The tension in it just like doesn't work for what I think they wanted to do. And especially having like Otis just be like a dickhead. All of the ladies are terrible. Like not just... Like they're just not people you care about like living in the movie. Yeah, I need a sequel to happen to this. Even if it's 100%. It's either got to be the cops deciding like, oh, well, we got to go find this Bigfoot, and then all dying, or like all of these Bigfoots hunting down Lloyd Braun.
I want a cop versus Yeti war for the sequel.
That'd be amazing.
Just all out war through the woods.
So yeah, that is Abominable. It is
a masterpiece.
That's one word you could use for it. It's
the only word.
Yeah, it's good. It's like there's definitely some really terrible movies that I love to watch that I'm like, you don't really need to watch this. Like Eaten Alive is good, but like you don't really need to watch it, especially because it's just fucking boring. It just like goes nowhere. This movie at least has like
There's some action.
Yeah, it has two real good death scenes in it. The Bigfoot costume alone is worth seeing, because it's fucking bonkers.
The reveal is totally worth it.
Yeah.
That slow turn.
It's good. I want to find that costume and just wear it for Halloween.
I wonder if it's on eBay.
I wonder if you could even find a costume that looks like that.
There's no way. There's no way anyone other than us and like 7 other people have seen Abominable.
Even the actors in the movie probably didn't watch it.
There's no way Lance Henriksen watched it.
Oh no. You think Jeffrey Combs watches every movie he's in?
100%.
Yeah.
Because Jeffrey Combs is a weirdo.
Jeffrey Combs fucking is so good. We need to do we need to just do all 3 of the Reanimator movies at some point.
I'm absolutely down.
Bride of Reanimator is so badly good.
Talk about the dick fighting the rat and Beyond Reanimator.
Yes, God, those movies are so good. I'm gonna watch those after this. My dog is in here losing his mind right now. Stop. So
it wouldn't be a complete podcast if there wasn't a dog trying to freak out.
Yeah. Calm down. So you went and saw Mandy, right?
I did.
How was it? Because I want to go see it. I saw something about, like, someone posted about the movie, and all I saw was that Nicolas Cage was in it, and I was like, I'm going to go see this movie. And I've, like, tried to just not read anything about it so I could just go in, like, completely fresh.
I think that's probably the best way to experience it. So it's super slow. The first hour is just pure setup, but it's really engaging and beautiful, but you're just kind of like, okay, well, where is this going? And then the back 45 minutes to an hour is just insane.
Yeah,
there's some really solid Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage moments,
which is always good. I like this trend of him doing like horror related movies, because his overacting works very well with the genre.
He does it's a really good mix for him in this of that serious, emotional Nicolas Cage, and then diving straight into insane, over-the-top Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I feel like
it's a good balance of those, instead of just going way, way into crazy Nick Cage that everyone kind of expects these days.
I feel like he should just stop trying to do like serious movies and just do shit like this where he just gets to be like as crazy as he wants to be and it like works. Like, or just keep making Wicker Man.
Or just remake Wicker Man all the time.
Because he is fucking insane in that movie, and I love it. Yeah, so I guess go see Mandy if it's playing near you.
Absolutely go see Mandy. I'm going to go see it for a second time this week.
I think if I got to figure out if it's even playing anywhere near me, I might try and go see it Friday. And then, because at this point, movies are too expensive that usually the only stuff I ever go see is like the Marvel movies. Because if I don't, some dickhead will ruin it for me like the night it airs, or like the night it premieres. So I'll usually end up going to see those because I'm a huge comic book nerd. But I'm definitely I want to try and see Mandy, and I'm 100% going to go see Halloween like the day it comes out.
One other thing for Mandy is I highly recommend going to see it in a theater if you can, if it's playing anywhere near you, because it's such audio-visual overload. Like the theater me and my friend went and saw it at, they, Panos Cosmatos, the director, had requested they crank the volume all the way up as loud as they could, and it's just surreal. It's a barrage, and it is really the only way to see it the first time.
That's kind of how I felt. Like I went and saw Drag Me to Hell in the theater.
Oh yeah, that was a really good theater movie.
Yeah, because like the whole scene with like the goat when they're doing like the seance was like so fucking loud in the theater.
So loud.
Like that was like the takeaway from that movie. I was just like, God, dude, this is like fucking like they had to do something with the sound because this is ridiculous. That movie is super good. Yeah, so I think that's it. I have been avoiding kind of news and stuff because I wanted to go into Halloween.
It's all terrible.
Well, like I think the only other trailer I've even watched recently has been the teaser for Suspiria, which looks terrible, but I'm still probably gonna end up seeing it. Which
I see it. I thought it looked decent.
I don't know. I guess I can't say it looks terrible from just like the teaser, but like you don't get like any of that color from like.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's gonna play out.
It just I don't know. It looks like it just looks too like muted, and I don't know. Like they don't really show like anything from like any like the classic shots from the original, which like I'm fine with. Like I'm gonna see it anyway. I just don't know if it'll be in a theater, but I'm real skeptical on how you can remake that movie and make it anywhere near as good. Because like the Evil Dead remake is fucking super good. I love that.
Those are really good. Kind of taking a campy, silly thing and making it real serious.
Yeah, and
that I think turned out really well.
But like they also kind of like just took the idea and did their own thing with it, and like some of the stuff in that movie is fucking brutal. Like the stuff with the nail gun, like was one of the few things that's ever really made me like squirm when it's not even the nail gun. It was like the guy gets hit in the hand with the crowbar.
With the crowbar.
Fuck, even thinking about that like bums me out. Yeah, I need to watch. I'm just gonna watch a bunch of shit after this now. Might as well watch that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. I think the next thing we're watching was Bait, which is on Shudder. Yeah, it's on Shudder. I'm not sure if it's on anything else, but the essential plot behind it, or like the little tag to get you to watch the movie, is like a storm locks a bunch of people inside a supermarket with 12-foot sharks, which sounds real stupid and awesome. So I can't wait to watch that, because I'd never even heard of it until I came across it.
I really love killer shark movies. It's my weakness for anyone that knows me.
I'm pretty much into anything that has all of them. Anything that's got like some sort of animal attacking people. I'm all about. So yeah, that'll be the next episode. That's on Shudder at least. It might be on like something else, but at least it's on Shudder. If you have Shudder, which if you're listening to this podcast, you should have Shudder.
Totally worth the $5 a month.
Yeah, and
sponsor a Shudder.
Yeah, no shit, Shudder. Where are you? Come give us money. Even though we'll probably end up plugging yours for free numerous times.
But you can't tell them that.
I mean, this is on a streaming service that we're not mentioning, even though we just mentioned it like 6 times.
No names.
The other thing I was going to mention was that I set up a Facebook and Twitter for the podcast, which on Facebook is just I Hope You Suffer Pod. You should be able to find us. And then on Twitter, it's just at I Hope You Suffer. Pretty easy. Come follow us and give us likes and give us a bunch of money. I told Kit we would be millionaires by episode 10, so I'm still working on that.
Yeah, we're on a timeline here. So if you could help out.
The Patreon will be on episode 3. Yeah, I think that's it, unless you want to throw anything out there.
Nah, I'm good.
Alright, we will see you in the next episode with Bait. Take it easy.